Dean Howland, a representative from another prestigious institution, is here to see you.
A what? Send him in.
Hello there. The name is Eric P. Cartman. I'm a well-respected owner in the slave trade.
And the what?
My peaches, what a wonderful office you got yourself, yeah? Certainly got yourself a lucrative business, don't you? Well, let me get right down to it then. Like yourself, I'm also in the slave trade. But at the moment, I find myself in a little quandary with legal issues. Was wondering if you could share some secrets.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You have some mighty strong-looking workers here, sir. I'd be willing to offer you $40 for 2 of the white ones and $50 for the blacks.
Are you referring to our student athletes?
Student athletes? Oh, that is brilliant, sir. Now, when we sell their likeness for video games, how do we get around paying for our slave student athletes then?
Look, there are good reasons why our student athletes cannot be paid, young man.
I ain't arguing. If they got paid, then how'd we make all our money, right?
We do not own slaves, and we have no desire to own slaves.
But of course you own slaves because... Oh, right. Of course you don't have desire to own slaves, son. Neither do I. And if there was any government agency listening in on this here conversation, they should know that we're not talking about slave ownership at all. All right, so now how do you get around not paying your slaves?
Get out. This is a prestigious university, and I am not saying one more word to you.
You think you can do whatever you want just because your corporation is a university? This country was founded on the idea that one corporation couldn't hog all the slaves while the rest of us wallow in poverty. Screw you, sir. I'm going home.
Do you know that you have a whole team that's black that plays for you?
Do I don't? I support them and give them food and clothes and cars and houses. Who gives it to them? Does someone else give it to them? Do I know that I have? Who makes the game? Do I make the game or do they make the game?
And just a few moments ago, upon entering the court for pregame warm-ups, the unified statement from the Clipper players wearing their warm-up shirts inside out, so the word Clippers are not across their chest. A statement apparently made regarding the racist comments allegedly made by owner Donald Sterling on a tape that was released by TMZ on Friday, and it's all anyone discussing.
That's our ball, we win the game. And we got robbed because of that call. And it's clear, everybody in the arena saw it. That's why everybody was shocked when they said Oklahoma City. That was our ball. Whether it was a foul or not, it was. But they didn't call it. That he didn't see the foul, but he had to be honest on the replay. That didn't happen here. Now, still have the right to win the game if the ball says it's our ball. And that didn't happen. And that's too bad. That's too bad for us. All right? I mean, we got 2 more games to play. But that could be a series-defining call. And that's not right.
Doc, just going back, you said on that there was a replay they didn't see.
That's what they were saying. I don't know who was saying it. They were saying we didn't. Come on, they had it in the arena. Yeah. Of course you saw it. Yeah. Steve Kerr and them were over there shaking their head. Everybody saw it.
You actually grabbed your clipboard.
Yeah, because I saw it, so I'm drawing up a side out of bounds play to get the ball in safe.
Coach, what did you make of Iguodala's comments last night?
Yeah, you guys got Andre'd. That's what happened. You got Andre'd.
So you weren't surprised that he had that reaction?
Andre is one of those guys who likes to stir the pot, and has a lot of cryptic messaging at times, jokes around. I didn't take anything from it. It's just Andre being Andre.
Was it something you'd heard before? He said it was an inside joke in the locker room. Was it something you'd heard him say before?
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, Andre is extremely intelligent. He sees a lot of the hypocrisy in the world. He expresses his displeasure in strange ways at times. So he said what he said. I don't think it meant a whole lot, but you know, he has to I guess he has to answer that question, what he meant by that. I wasn't offended by anything he said personally, but you know, he chose some words that were you know, questionable, and he's got to respond to that.
Who's starting that?
I actually remember seeing signs that would say, when you got to North Carolina, welcome to Klan country. Big billboards, you know, they paid for it, they put it up, and it was there.
So you're asking a guy not only to deal with his real personal life and his real life, but compete with those kind of things on his mind. That's what makes you an excellent athlete. You're able to lay that aside and gig. Do your gig. Get it done.
Nobody wants shit when you're down and out. Dig that. Check it out. Once I lived a life of a millionaire.
Free, free, set them free. Free, free, set them free. Free, free, set.
Hey, what's up? It's your girl, Sarah Valentine, on the scene in Chicago. You know how we do. Crazy Chicks TV. I am here with the author, Mark Johnson. What y'all know about that, okay? I am here with Mark Johnson. This is all about Basketball Slave. I want to know what brings you to Chicago.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here today. I started off as being in Chicago because, first of all, the Harlem Globetrotters started here, right here in Chicago. A lot of times people think that, you know, they started in New York City because they say Harlem, but they actually started right here in Chicago on Dearborn Street. And Chicago is really a mecca of basketball. The World Series of basketball used to take place here in the early 30s. And actually in 1939, the Harlem Renaissance won the World Series. In 1940, the Harlem Globetrotters won the World Series of basketball right here in Chicago, Chicago Stadium.
Oh, wow. Now, I totally thought that Harlem Globetrotters were in Harlem, okay? So, Andy Johnson, what is the relation of Andy Johnson?
Well, Andy Johnson was my father. He was one of the first blacks in the NBA, played for the Philadelphia Warriors, and one of the rich touring in the early 50s. And my father was part of that team that toured all around the world, what actually made them this famous team that they are today.
All right, so Basketball Slave. Now, what made that title? How did you come up with that title?
You know, I really wish I could take credit for that title, a Basketball Slave, but that's actually a quote my father used. You know, growing up in the early 50s, his actual quote was, "My high school and college used me, and the pros sold me. I was a basketball slave," and that's what I titled the book, Basketball Slave.
Second. Now, how long did this take, and what actually brought this about?
Well, actually, it was an 8-year project. I had to go do a lot of research and reach out to a lot of people in that era. And being my father being who he was, I had access to a lot of these people. Okay. And kind of what started it is that back in, I guess maybe about 10 years ago, my father, they started a pension plan program for the NBA pre-65 players. And in filling out the paperwork, my father was denied. So kind of going back and forth, you need to play 5 years. My father played 4 years, 3 years with Philadelphia Warriors. Before the Warriors were the Warriors, before the Sixers, Philadelphia Sixers were the Sixers, they were the Philadelphia Warriors. And then he got loaned. And when I say loaned, we can kind of get into that later. But he was actually loaned to Chicago because actually Chicago did not have a team well, the last team Chicago had were the Chicago Stags in 1949. So that whole, from 1950, 1960, Chicago did not have a NBA team. Okay. So because of the Harlem Globetrotters starting here and them having a following in those earlier years, they used my father, Andy Johnson, and another Harlem Globetrotter, Woody Salisbury, also played for the Philadelphia Warriors, to start the expansion team, which were the Chicago Packers. My father, along with Walt Bellamy and Woody Salisbury and a few other players.
Okay, all right.
So, and kind of going back to your original question, kind of what started is that when I found out they denied my father, and I said, "Dad, you know, kind of what happened?" Because you had to play 5 years under the plan. And my father said, "Well, I played 4 years, and after that season was over, the owner came to me and had me sign a contract." So basically, he was under contract for that 5th year. But there was dissension between the NBA and Abe Saperstein, who was the owner of the Harlem Globetrotters, who wanted to put an all-black team in the NBA in those earlier years, and he was denied from the NBA. And start doing all this research, I found out that, you know, they didn't allow black ball players in the NBA. Wow. Yeah, there was a quota system, 2 black ball players per team, and not all franchises took advantage of having black ball players. And so it's kind of funny because when I went back in the history books, all the teams that chose not to have black players, they folded immediately. So there's really only 8 teams that survived within that 10-year period of the 50s to 1960.
Okay, I did not know that. And I'm gonna just keep it real here. How much did you get through this? Like when you were doing all your research and stuff, I know that you did not know all of this. Were you like shocked by like a lot of this different stuff? And then how much more information did you receive? And what has it done for you during this book?
Well, yeah, you know, again, I started off just really kind of helping my dad get his pension. And after uncovering how they didn't allow black ball players in the NBA, and I'm like, wow, first of all, we kind of dominate the sport as it stands now. But now to think about not even allowing us to play in the NBA. So I thought that was just an injustice that was happening to my father. And so I start uncovering and found out it was not just my father was dealing with this injustice, but it was all the black ball players. I mean, I'm talking about All-Americans. There's even a situation in 1955 I found out that when Bill Russell, along with Willie Knowles, got recruited, they got drafted, and this is kind of how the NBA kind of got away with things, because you got to remember now we're dealing with the civil rights era, that 1955-56 era, and they actually drafted, you know, they would draft black ball players, but they wouldn't keep them. And like I was saying, in St. Louis, they drafted 5 black ball players. Bill Russell was amongst them, and Willie Knowles was another one. Well, we all know what happened to Bill Russell. They didn't keep him. He ended up going to Boston, and we know the history from there. And along with Willie Knowles, went to New York and became an all-star there. The other players actually played in what they call the Eastern League. So these were the only leagues that these black ball players were allowed to play, was in either with the Harlem Globetrotters. So, you know, in uncovering this history, you know, I found out that, you know, whenever I say Harlem Globetrotters, people say, oh yeah, I see all the Globetrotters, they spin the ball on their fingers and on their heads and those kind of things. But back in that day, they were serious ball players. Okay. That's the only place they could play, was the Harlem Globetrotters.
Now, where do you think that the transition, or through your research, where did the transition come to where they're just like entertainment?
Well, you know, that actually started, I guess, that actually started in the early 60s when, you know, the NBA really started becoming integrated. Actually, in the back of the book, I compiled all the black players that played and the teams that they played for. You know, I always ask, you know, what's the oldest, when you talk about history of the NBA and black ball players and the first players, I say, you know, who can you think of? And the first names that usually come to mind is, you know, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Oscar Robinson. But those guys actually didn't play. They actually didn't come into the league until 1959, 60. Black ball players start actually coming in the league in 1950 when the league started again. It actually started because before the 1950, it was the NBL, the National Basketball League, and the BAA. They merged, and that became the NBA. And there were a few players that played for the NBL teams. But what happened is, you got to remember now, these are the first blacks that are playing in the league. A lot of the white players didn't want them playing, and they would literally take, you know, there were a lot of race riots that would break out at these games because the white players would play these black ball players pretty hard and foul them pretty hard in the name of defense, and that would start a lot of fights. What would you want the reader to get from this book? Well, there's several things I wanted the reader to get from the book. First of all, like I said, this is the first time in the back of the book, you know, I actually start, you know, the Harlem Globetrotters started in the late 20s. I want them to understand that, you know, in 1940 and 1930, like I said, 1939, 1940, there were World Series of basketball that was being played right here in Chicago. I want them to understand that, you know, the dunks, the slam dunks, the fancy dribbling, all the things that they have now, You know, that kind of started way back. Right. You know, so that's one thing I want people to understand.
Free, free, set them free. Free, free, set them free. Free, free, set them free.
Okay, I get it. I get some tension in the room. Let's just address it. Why the hell did they get me to host this thing? No, I'm serious. Biggest night in sports? They couldn't go out and get Kevin Hart, Matt Damon, Kristaps Porzingis? He was my number one, by the way. Instead, they handed to a guy who spends most of his life in jean shorts and is actually proud of it. Why? Why did they go get a guy from the redheaded stepchild of sport and entertainment? Why did ESPN get a host from the WWE? I mean, it's rigged. Did I just spoil the surprise for some of the people? It's scripted entertainment. What we do is fake, right? So I know what you're thinking. Me hosting the ESPYs, that's crazy. Or is it genius? It's time to take a look at yourself, sports, and realize that you're more like the WWE than you have ever imagined. I'm going to start with the NBA. Cleveland won something. That's actually impossible. There is no way that wasn't scripted. Especially when you look at the whole story. Okay, LeBron. You used to be a good guy, and then you turned into a bad guy, and now you're a good guy again? And you left the NBA hanging. What are they going to do when they don't have a bad guy? Exactly what we do. They're going to make a new one.
Effective immediately, I am banning Mr. Sterling for life from any association with the Clippers organization or the NBA. Mr. Sterling may not attend any NBA games or practices. He may not be present at any Clippers facility, and he may not participate in any business or player personnel decisions involving the team. He will also be barred from attending NBA Board of Governors meetings or participating in any other league activity. I am also fining Mr. Sterling $2.5 million, the maximum amount allowed under the NBA Constitution. Under the NBA Constitution. Under the NBA Constitution.
Well, first you have to understand that black players are not welcome any place, not just Boston. Not defending that, but just saying that what you're talking about is something that was prevailing in the society. You know, it's like we came along and we did these things, and got reluctance applause, but they didn't say welcome. I was a citizen, and I will demand everything that goes with being a citizen, so that I would never accept less than the best. But the way I did it was, I made sure that none of my adversaries knew what I valued. You see, because once your adversaries know what you value, they give them a point of attack.
Come on, feel the goal.
Aaron a follow into one.
Oh my!
Now there was a little
technical foul. Yeah.
Listen to me. It wasn't your play, and you went from there to there and brought the crowd down. You're not going to do it. Crowd down. Crowd? Yeah, just beat the hair of this thing.
Refereeing the game?
My job is to referee the game.
All right, so what you worried about the crowd?
Alan, that's because you're not going to do that. Play the game yourself.
You let people get it away.
Alan, the conversation is over.
That's not part of the play.
What I'm saying to
Every
you
game
is...
I've watched on TV, you call. Every call is a foul. I even told those guys before the game, Ben, and every call is a foul. They don't even have a part of the game.
Hey, Larry, are you through?
No, I'm not through. You've ruined every game, Ben.
Excuse me. You got it. You got it.
That's good.
Technical foul. Yeah.
That's all you can do.
I suggest you sit down.
He was standing in the lane. He's standing there. He's not moving. He hasn't moved. Dwight Howard runs into him.
That's right.
And they call the foul on Yao.
Jones able to race it down. Jones, let's take a look. The outlet pass a little bit too far ahead of Jones. He does a nice job of recovering, and a little bump right there from Billups.
Timeout, LA. Whack! Get out! Get away from me, Steve. Get away from me, Steve. He didn't say a word. Technical foul, Wallace. He's gone. No, not right. I asked him 3 times to stop staring at me to try to intimidate me. I'm done. He's gone. I asked him. I told him. I have already told Mike twice before to have him stop staring to try to intimidate me. He did it again. He's gone.
Halftime, as the teams went to the locker room, DeRosa going over to the scores table to get their jackets, along with the other officials who are blowing up where you can see it. You see DeRosa picks up the ball. They usually hand it to the scores table. There's a fan right behind really giving him an earful. DeRosa throws him the ball. The fan throws it back. And then Joe DeRosa looked to the security and said, throw the guy out.
Ginobili on the pass, gets inside, misses the layup. He's pleading for foul, and now a late whistle. Tim Donnie, outside official, made the call late.
No, I don't know what he saw.
There he misses the free throw. And a technical foul call. I think it's on Tim Duncan sitting on the bench. Somebody on the bench for the Spurs. Yep, it's Duncan, who was unhappy with the lack of a call or a call earlier. And he said something to Joe Crawford. Now, Crawford, as we said, one of the best in the business, but he also has maybe the quickest technical in the NBA of all the officials.
Well, you see going into the timeout, Joey said enough to Tim Duncan, and Tim Duncan says the ball does not lie. That's why the foul shot was missed. Joey Crawford sending a message saying, hey, I'm not going to get into the debate all afternoon long.
Duncan's laughing. Joe Crawford's not laughing. Harris again to the basket. Howard now drives inside right over Alberto, and a blocking foul. Joey Crawford saying Alberto moving. Peg Popovich doesn't like that one either. And another technical foul. And this was when Duncan's out of the game. He's thrown Duncan out of the game.
I'm into this game. Okay.
Foul away from the ball. Roy, possibly. Yes, it's going to be on Roy, and that is his. No, it's on Campbell. Equally as damaging for Portland. Hold on a second. This has got to be on somebody else. Camby wasn't in the play.
And it must have been away from the ball. No one, Nash doesn't even think he should be shooting. He was out at half court. And Joey Crawford said, and Nash.
It's penalty. It's they're in the penalty now. Portland is, but the question is,
we got to see it back.
It's on Camby. It is. That's his 4th foul. That is a huge call in this ball game. Let's take a look.
All right. Nash is shooting, so let's see if Nash is the one that gets fouled.
That is a 4th foul in the playoffs. Are you kidding me?
And Nash shouldn't be on the line. Oh, Nash was. That really... You put a 90% free throw shooter on the line when he didn't have any business being near the free throw line. Oh, holy cow. Joey, you missed one there. I mean, really missed one.
Travels with the ball. And a foul called out top. I don't know. He was out of control. And it's going to be on LaMarcus Aldridge, I believe. I have to see that and see if he is out of control. Let's see. He spins here. No one's near him. No one's near him.
The timeout and bring Howard back in.
Pistons in the third quarter led by 15. They cut it to 7 at the end. No call. Dooling now gets a call.
And what Flip Saunders is so upset about is the fact that he thinks he spun and ran into his own teammate, and that's who hit him, not one of the Pistons players.
I grew up in Havertown, Pennsylvania. My father was a college basketball official, and because of that, because of my love of sports, I followed in his footsteps and pursued a career as an NBA basketball referee. The NBA is a much different game, if you will, from high school and college. Even though a lot of the rules are written the same, they're not enforced the same. I started the referee based on the rules and how they're written in the rule book.
Tim Donaghy, the rookie official, is calling it very tight here in the early going. A lot of offensive fouls and picks, so they're calling it by the rule book.
Unfortunately, I saw some people that were moving up a little bit quicker than me. I learned from the veterans that there's a certain craft and a certain way that you have to do things in order to advance. And they'll tell you, certain players are given the benefit of maybe traveling with the basketball rather than other players. Certain players are getting the benefit of not having that critical foul called on them that would send them to the bench.
Rubio gets a look, good if it goes. Oh my gosh, that's just a horrible call by Jason Phillips, who did not have the courage to call that against Kobe Bryant. Wow, awful no call.
It's probably about 50-50 when you look at calls that are enforced by the rule book and then calls that are made or not made based on star treatment, pressure from coaches at certain times.
What changed those last few minutes for you guys? You guys are the whistles.
I've never had conversations with the commissioner about what to call in a game and what not to call in a game, but from the operations department, they clearly dictate through video, through emails, through meetings, what they want called and what they don't want called. And it always seems to revolve around the star players or the big market teams. Kobe Bryant's a star in this league. He puts a lot of people in the stands, he sells a lot of sneakers, and he sells a lot of jerseys. And the fans paid an enormous amount of money to sit in those courtside seats, and they want those type of players on the floor. That's who they came to see. Bottom line is it's more of a form of entertainment than an actual athletic competition. I don't think the officials feel that they're not doing something that's not right, because in their minds they're being told what to do from the league office, and if they're going to continue to advance and get those big playoff bonus checks, you're going to do what the league wants. Being an NBA referee and being involved in the planning of how the game was going to be called that night, I knew certain teams were going to be at an advantage or a disadvantage. And it was just a situation where I crossed a line that I shouldn't have been near.
Welcome to the Ari Lewis Show.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports News Radio. Thank you for joining us. Very special guest on the line right now. He is from RefPicks.com, author of the book Personal Foul. He's appeared on many interview shows, such as 60 Minutes, The Artie Lane Show, and now he's on this show. It's a privilege to welcome to the program Mr. Tim Donaghy.
I'm doing good, pal. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to get right into it. We're in the midst of the conference finals right now, both Western and Eastern Conference. Already there's been some controversy throughout the postseason regarding referees and their calls, and you've spoken in the past about how partnerships or relationships between referees and general managers, referees and coaches affect the games. Can you just tell my audience a little bit more about that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. When you're a referee, you have positive and negative relationships with players, owners, and coaches, and from there it spills out onto the floor in regard to how you call the game. And prime example the other night was, Russell Westbrook. Obviously, that was a travel, but for some reason it was let go, and it was probably let go because it was kind of questionable either way, but we know that it was a travel, but he probably had a half-decent relationship with McCutcheon, the official that was on the play, and he decided to give him the timeout rather than call the travel.
And I'm glad you brought that up because star calls obviously are a factor. I want to know how much of a factor, because you talked in the past where the Lakers complained Kobe Bryant was not getting enough calls. He sent the CD, and you knew that Kobe Bryant was going to have a trip to the free throw line. How much do star calls play a factor in getting the benefit of the call when it comes down to referee calls?
I mean, it's huge. I mean, the officials referee the names on the front and the back of the jerseys rather than the rules and how they're written in the rule book. And it's obvious when you allow LeBron James to push off and take that extra step going to the basket, or some of the other star players in the league, allowed to travel and get away with an extra hop, skip, and a jump, and the officials look the other way.
Now, one of the things I also want to focus upon is the concept of makeup calls, because we hear that a lot. Is that theory, or does that really happen? Let's say the referee makes a bad call on a play, on an offensive play, then they switch sides and go to the defensive end. Will he make up a call to try to make things even? Does that really happen?
It does. It has happened a lot in the past. I think they're getting away from that a little bit. They don't want that because the media has talked about it. They definitely want to try and say that they're being consistent. So if there's a cheap foul down one end, they're going to go down the other end and try to do the same thing to try to remain somewhat consistent.
Again, we're on the line right now with Tim Donaghy here on the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports and News Radio. I want to bring out some theories I've heard in the past. If they're true or not, there was a theory that a referee during a fourth quarter of a playoff game went up to Michael Jordan in his heyday and said, "Can I get an autograph from you after the game?" I just want to know if you heard that rumor and if it's true or not, according to your understanding.
I mean, it's happened many times. I've seen people go up to some of these star players before the game and ask them to have the ball boy send in a pair of their signed sneakers or a jersey after the game for them. And, it's a situation where the guy always did it, and he wanted to do it because he knew that he was going to get the favorable whistle for that guy every time he saw him.
Wow. Now, is there anything that – I mean, it seems like things have gotten worse because it seems like referees kept more of a distance in the past. Do you think things have gotten worse, let's say now, as opposed to the 90s and 80s when MJ played?
I think they've gotten better in regard to autographs because I think that if you're caught doing that now, you're definitely going to get fined, suspended, and possibly fired. So I don't think before a game any of the referees are going up to any of these star players and asking them for their sneakers or jersey prior to the tip-off.
Okay, so that's an aspect where it's gotten better, an aspect where it's gotten worse in your opinion.
I just think that it's a combination of a lot of things, but I think that the star treatment is still out there, and it's a situation where these guys that have the bigger names are getting the benefit of the calls.
Now, let's talk about bigger teams, bigger markets. In the East, you obviously have Cleveland with LeBron James versus the Toronto Raptors, and all due respect, I don't think the NBA wants Toronto in the NBA Finals. How would that work, per se, if the NBA wants to keep Toronto out? Is it that a directive is sent to the referees calling the game or the head of referees? How does that work exactly? Because I don't think anyone in the league, except for Toronto fans, wants to see an NBA Finals with the Raptors in it.
Phoenix frustrating after starting 6-9. They're shooting 29%. Here they are again, and a foul, and a slip, and Hill gives Evans a bad on the backside. Evans gives him on the backside a technical foul. They're both out. Come on now. That's ridiculous. How can you be throwing these guys out? Kennedy is an official. He's a top-notch official. He got the call right, and they slap each other on the butt. It wasn't the first two slaps. It was the third slap they got.
Behind him on the bench. 4.5-second difference. Game clock, shot clock. Lowry! An offensive foul called against Kyle Lowry and Dwayne Casey. A technical foul called on Kyle Lowry. He's out of the game. Wow. Dwayne Casey cannot believe the call. Lowry ran away from the scene and was just teed up by Michael Smith.
I'll tell you what, man.
I am shocked that Kyle got the tee and got a run. Because he ran away from the scene.
And how is that, Matt? That was his normal motion. He was jumping back and his feet came up. He didn't extend his feet just came up, but you could see the reaction of Lowry.
And Lowry
he was trying to get that shot off as quickly as he could.
Way, and he got teed up for that.
Pulls it up, and it's blocked from behind, but a foul on Howard.
He's got to be careful. Remember, he's already got a technical, and even though it might not affect tonight's game, these things start accumulating. Remember, you're the seventh. You are disqualified for a game or suspended for a game, so here's the play from behind. You see the play afterwards. This is where, again, you've got to just be able to walk away from it. I know it's an emotional situation, Marv, but he already has one, and it's not so much the ejection here, and even if it's a clean block, which it looks like it was from behind. He got the all ball in that situation, so I understand why he was upset.
Oh, I can see Dwight has a point. And now the officiating crew over to the video replay. They want to check where LeBron James was, where his feet were when attempting that shot, whether it was a three-point attempt, which would mean 3 free throws. Let's see. Yeah, there's no question.
And he clearly got the ball. I mean, that was a block shot from behind, so.
Cousins. Offensive foul. He got Chandler up near the chops, and guess what, Jerry? That's his 6th foul. What a change of momentum this is. DeMarcus Cousins has just fouled out of this game.
Good look at it now. As you see DeMarcus trying to get position in there. I think Tyson Chandler did a nice job of assisting on that call as well. But you see DeMarcus.
Well, I'd love to see that again.
Another look at it as we see Chandler trying to.
That's awful. Come on, that's terrible. That's a terrible call. You know, I give Chandler credit because he sold that, but that's a terrible call. So now it's Dallas who will have a chance to win it on their final possession. That's a terrible call.
Well, and it goes back to the fact that they called a foul we thought was on Collison, and they gave it to Cousins early in the quarter for his fourth foul. Now we'll get another look. You see Chandler trying to.
And I've heard him compared to a lot of people so far this season. Haven't heard him compared to Abe just yet. I have now. Here's Johnson. Head fake on Hickson.
Is that double dribble? That's double dribble.
Terry Stotts is saying, what in the heck?
Yeah, they missed it completely. 3 refs out there. It's double dribble.
That was what the Trailblazer coaching staff was upset
Now there's
about.
the first dribble. Now there's the second dribble. How do you miss that? I mean, he dribbled. He had double dribble.
James again isolated against Iguodala. 4 to shoot. Drives. Spins. Double team. Tied up. Knocked away. And a 24-second violation. James thought he was hit. Pleading with Tony Brothers.
It actually looked like he was clearly hit as Iguodala swiped down for the steal. Like he got away with it.
Oh, my goodness. Not even close.
You can't miss that call.
He raked them across the arm.
Joining me right now to talk about the book is the author, William C. Rhoden, who's been a sports columnist at the New York Times for more than 2 decades, and Armstrong Williams, the host of the television show The Right Side and a guest columnist for USA Today. Also, Dr. Leonard Moore, the author of 7 books on race, including African-American racial identity in sports, and an associate professor of history and African-American studies at Louisiana State University. And Joel Mowbray, an award-winning investigative journalist and a syndicated columnist. Please give my panel a round of applause, everybody. Now, appreciate you being on the show, Mr. William C. Rhoden. Had to go to you first. I've known you for years, and I have to say I cannot believe the title. I was stunned. $40 million slaves. I mean, talk about that title. Where did that title come from?
That's a great starting point. That's great. The title actually comes from Larry Johnson. Mm-hmm. You know Larry Johnson?
Yes, I do. Formerly of the New York Knicks.
Knicks. Well, remember in 1999 when the Knicks were in the NBA championship, and Larry was boycotting the media, and they were fine. So fine said, okay, you all want me to talk? I'm going to talk. So he commenced to blast the media and all that. But one of the things he said is that the only people I care about are those brothers on the court. He pointed to the Knicks. He said, we're rebellious slaves. We're a bunch of rebellious slaves. So, of course, the next day, he was just completely massacred in the media. Well, a year later, they were playing a game. Knicks were playing a game in Los Angeles against the Clippers.
Against the Clippers, yes.
Against the Clippers. And so during a timeout, as they walked to the bench, this white fan stood up behind the Knicks bench and he said, "Johnson, you're nothing but a $40 million slave." And I thought that the anecdote was interesting for 2 reasons. A, that this fan remembered that for a whole season. And B, that Larry Johnson chose that particular metaphor to try to describe to the media exactly how he felt. You know, that particular myth. So that was, I want that to begin the beginning of a dialogue.
And that dialogue is what? Because you started you started something here. You know that. Well, you know that, Bill. I've known you for years, and I'm telling you right now, I was shocked by the title because I'm saying to myself, people say, you're talking about slaves and mentioning it in the same breath as multi-million-dollar athletes.
But this is a problem. See, this is the first problem. You cannot equate, see, as soon as you begin to equate money with slavery, you're wrong. I mean, you're wrong because it's a condition. There were brothers, and I went all the way on the plantation. I've been doing it for 8 years. I went all the way on the plantation. There were slaves, there were jockeys who were making lots of money. Slave jockeys. There was a brother named Charles
1700s and 1800s?
Oh, man, there was a brother named Charles Stewart who was a trainer. We're talking about 1810. This brother was a trainer. He had his owners, he was in charge of his owner's stables. At a time when black people weren't supposed to leave state without a pass, this guy had his runners, and you know what? He was making so much money, he had to hire an agent because he was making so much money. But guess what? Charles Stewart was a slave. He was sold 3 or 4 times. Only difference is he could negotiate the terms of his...
But getting back to your point, you're saying money shouldn't be associated with slavery. Is that what you're saying?
Money has nothing to do with the condition. It's the condition of slavery, not necessarily how much money you have.
All right, let me go to Armstrong Williams. You sit right next to him. What are your thoughts as you hear this, especially when he says you shouldn't identify money with slavery? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's inseparable. You know, so many people play off slavery and human slavery and the wretchedness of that. You know, in slavery, human beings, American blacks, did not have a choice. They were forced into in this kind of behavior, dehumanized, and even though the founders realized it was wrong. athletes make a choice. Many young people spend their lives, their childhoods, preparing, wanting to be in the NBA, wanting to be in the NFL, wanting to be superstar athletes. They may not choose the right behavior. They may not have, in some instances, the right value system, but they're free. And many of them go back and empower their families, empower their communities, and they don't squander their money and their resources. I think what Mr. Roden is talking about here, something that we should talk about, is a value system that's like it. But there is no way in 2006 that you can equate athletes with slavery. There's just no comparison.
Let me bring the doctor in here. Go ahead, Doc. He said, you heard what Armstrong Williams said. There's no way that you can basically relate slavery to the modern day athlete. Your thoughts? He's talking, William C. Roden talking about a slave's mentality. What are your thoughts, sir?
I agree with Roden. I want to thank Roden for writing the piece. I think what we need to realize is that whenever you are not free to speak your mind, whenever the money comes attached with handcuffs, then I believe that you are a slave. I think many African-American athletes have been taught to believe that they are supposed to focus on anything but their particular sport. And I believe that if brothers start to become conscious, start to become political, start to become racially conscious, then I think the money will be cut off.
Hold on, Doc.
I agree with Roden.
But hold on, Doc. How about white America out there? And I'll bring you in a second, Joe. But how about white America who's sitting out there looking at it and saying to themselves, what are you talking about handcuffs? What kind of handcuffs are you talking about? We're paying these guys multi-million dollars. They've got a lot of freedom that a lot of us don't enjoy because they're not making that money. I want you to elaborate on that, Doc. What are you talking about handcuffs?
I don't think they have any freedom whatsoever. A lot of them have white handlers. A lot of them have white agents, white financial planners.
I support them and give them food and clothes and cars and houses. Who gives it to them? Does someone else give it to them?
When's the last time you seen an African-American athlete really put some money into the African-American community? You know, they buy rim shops, restaurants, clubs, and jewelry. But when's the last time you seen an African-American athlete buy a school, endow a university, and things of that nature? Those are the things we're talking about. They need to start building institutions. But what we find is that a lot of these brothers are scared. They have no testicular fortitude when it comes to racial or social issues. And as a result, the money just stays within a tightly knit circle, and the black community gets no benefit whatsoever from this black athletic prowess.
Joe Moore, let me bring Armstrong with you. Let me tell you the problem I have with the professor. You see, we are in a place where the thing that Martin Luther King dreamed about, where a man and a woman would get to the place where they're not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Are you kidding?
That nigga's tripping. I think it is so unfair to say to an athlete, because they are black, that they have to conform to a certain mentality. They've got to do a certain thing for the same community. That's not freedom. That is a new form of racism. And what the professors advocating is the new racism.
That's ridiculous.
It is. It's racism because you're only doing it because they're black. And because they're black, you feel they should be accountable in ways that other people are not. And that is wrong.
Dr. Moore, go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Moore. Hold on, Joe. Go ahead, Dr. Moore. Go ahead and respond to that.
The scripture says, to whom much is given, much is required.
It didn't mention color.
Imagine if Reggie Bush said, I'm not going to play for the Saints until the levees are fixed. Imagine if LeBron James said, I'm not going to re-sign with the Cavaliers until they fix that atrocious school system. These are the kind of things that athletes need to speak out upon. That's what we're talking about.
It's a human condition. All decent people should speak out against this.
Hold on, Joe.
The 6'4" California Player of the Year could pass, shoot, and was incredibly fast. But when it came time to look at colleges, not a single Division I program came calling with a scholarship.
Not one Pac-10 team?
No.
Not UCLA, not Stanford, your hometown?
No.
What do you think they didn't see?
Well, I think the obvious thing is, in my mind, is that I was Asian American.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
When you say because you're an Asian American, what is that?
When I was growing up, I was playing in the AAU tournaments. We would play in games, and a couple times people would be like, yo, take your ass back to China, or like, you're a Chinese import, or whatever. Yeah, I've always said if I was black, I would have gotten D1 scholarship, but that's my personal opinion.
Well, he's an Asian kid. He's an Asian kid, and he's not 7 foot tall, and you don't see a lot of Asian point guards making it in Division I basketball. Such a simple kind of thought, but was the thinking.
When I got to college, it just like got crazy. It was just like, you chink, you know, can you even open your eyes? Can you see the scoreboard? You know, just like crazy stuff. And I'd just be like, dude, like what is going on?
Being in the spotlight brought Jeremy an inevitable byproduct. Attention, both positive and negative.
I mean, people look at basketball players in terms of race. A lot of times, basketball is not considered an Asian sport here in America. You'd be playing on the road, specific gyms in the Ivy League, and they would yell racial slurs to him.
He's handled everything very well, as you said, unflappable, but if there is a chink in the armor, where can Lin improve his game? A chink in the armor.
A chink in the armor.
Nice build. He's got long arms. That's what you need as a point guard. And he's really, I mean...
What about his eyes?
He's great. He has great court vision.
Take away the Lin puns. This is what you end up with. Amazing. Now, is that even legal?
Jeremy Lin, yes, that's real. Jeremy Lin coming out of a fortune cookie.
This whole thing has shown how unprepared we were to deal with this culture in this context.
Floyd Mayweather and Jeremy Lin tweets. All the hype is because he's Asian. Black players do what he does every night, don't get the same praise.
First of all, what he said, I think, is racist. Not only can he compete and make it in the NBA, the guy's tearing it up and is breaking records, you knucklehead.
Check it out. He does the math to win. Yeah.
For many years, we've had many stereotypes about Asian Americans, and now they're all kind of coming out like there's no big deal. They are a big deal.
Now, with all the talk swirling around Lin, some of the discussion has gotten racially charged. We've seen derogatory comments from Fox Sports' Jason Whitlock and ESPN.com. The bottom line is, the kid's a great basketball player, and race has nothing to do with it. As the New York Post says, he's amazing.
Is there anything else?
No.
What would dumb niggas say? Just play harder. Figure it out. Change gonna come. Ain't that what we should say? Yeah. Change gonna come.
So, just go ahead.
Is it tougher to take losses like this when you come back? You know, you guys fight back from 17, get ahead by 1, and then lose it right at the end?
Nah, losing is losing. You know, losing is losing. That's it.
Was it planned that you guys would take tomorrow off? You was a couple of you take tomorrow off, game off. Was that what you planned?
We taking tomorrow off?
You, Steph, Dre, and Clay.
No clue. Do what Master say. Thank you.
Yeah, they know. I mean, I've had NBA players like actually tell me, man, I'm actually scared to like reach back into my history and find out who I am. It's like, but they be like, yo, I know one day I will get there to a point where it's like I'm not necessarily scared about my past. Because a lot of times, like when people find out truth, understanding, and getting information, most people are scared because they already know. Like once they get the information, you got to do something. So for me, man, I deal with a lot of guys who are like, they think they're conscious. Like it's a consciousness to where it's like they're trying to get past that point of what they see on Hidden Colors. Like Hidden Colors kind of like open up the doors for some people, but at the same time, it still don't give them the overall picture of who we are. You dig what I'm saying? Right. Nothing against my guy, but it is what it is, man. It's like, we can talk freely on the show, right?
Yeah, we're open. You do it. There's no muzzle.
All right, cool. So, you got certain people, like even players and stuff, they'll watch the Hidden Colors. But we already know, like, Hidden Colors not giving us everything that we need to know of who we are as far as Moors, the behind that is. We already know what time it is. Right. You dig what I'm saying? So it's like, and he knows he's a Moor. So a lot of my brothers, they haven't even heard of what a Moor is. It's like because of programming. We spent our whole life playing basketball. So when you playing basketball from 8 to 40 something years old, you never get a chance to learn something. You spend most of your time trying to survive because you got your agent telling you all you have to do is worry about basketball. You got your wife and kids, just worry about playing ball. Your mom, just all you gotta do is worry about hooping. You don't take time to meditate. You don't necessarily take time to study. You don't give yourself these things that you really need in order to be able to be who you truly are. But me personally, I just don't know. I was always seeking. I always had a heart to seek. whether it was to study the Bible, like wherever I needed to get information, that's where I was at. Like I've been a conspiracy theorist since I was 2. So it was like I was always questioning stuff, and I always recognized like, nah, this ain't it. And remember that song Beanie Siegel came with, like, this can't be life, gotta be more. And that was always my thing. I'm like, nah, this can't be it. And I know whether I'm not connected to like coming to earth, pay bills and die.
Now, okay, now, quick question. Now, how do you, like, what made you come to that realization, being that you were in this position that you were, where, you know, bank accounts are right, and, you know what I mean, you don't really have to worry like that, but you still found a way to keep your sincerity and keep your, you know, ego, now, because you know, we can talk BS now, you know what I mean, that you were one of the top college players coming out and all that, you know what I mean? So how you put all that aside, because we can't even get people to put aside the little stuff that they got to deal with. You know what I mean? How you put all that aside to come to this realization that, you know, things aren't right and you got to change and you got to seek information and whatever.
I don't know. I feel like that was just something that was in me, bro. I feel like, you know, just from birth, like my birthmark was meant to do what I did. You know, and be who I am now. It's like I told you earlier, like my name is Maurice. And like it was always divine. And I always felt like, man, I always felt like that shit became new age slavery. I was like, you look at it, you were like, all right, cool. You got all these coaches, even in high school. You got these coaches from all across the world who want us to play, but at the same time, if I didn't play ball, if I wasn't nice at basketball, would you care? Would it even matter?